Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you all to Social Studies class. This is our lesson number 2, and the topic which we are going to cover today, the first one is Ideology of Pakistan according to Allama Iqbal and Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Allama Iqbal, Dr. Allama Muhammad Iqbal, the poet of the East and the father of the nation, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. These are the two prominent among those who played their role in the creation of Pakistan, these two prominent leaders. These two great leaders explain the two-nation theory and the ideology of Pakistan in a very clear way, and they had the most appropriate words in their speeches and statements on different occasions. First, Allama Muhammad Iqbal and ideology of Pakistan. Allama Muhammad Iqbal, interestingly, this fact is that, like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in the beginning, he was also in favor of the Hindu and Muslims unity. But later on, he negated this one nation theory that the Muslims and the Hindus can be one nation or they can have the same identity. So he changed his mind and he put forward the idea of the separate state for the Muslims of the subcontinent. Okay, in 1930, in his presidential address at the annual session of Muslim League at Allahabad, he said, India is a subcontinent of human groups belonging to different races, speaking different languages and professing different religions. The principles of European democracy cannot be implemented in India. The Muslim demand for a Muslim separate state within India is therefore perfectly justified. And then later he said that he presented this idea of Muslim state for the very first time on the territorial basis. Now listen carefully. I would like to see the Punjab, North-West Frontier Province, which is KP now, Sindh and Balochistan amalgamated into a single state. It appears to be the final destiny of the Muslims of northwestern India. And he said that the religion and politics cannot be separated in Islam. It is not possible, like as the Hindus of the subcontinents, they were saying that religion and politics should be separated and the Hindus and the Muslims will live together in subcontinent. But he gave very clear stance about it, and he said that religion and politics are not separate from each other in Islam. Now let's discuss Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the ideology of Pakistan. Quaid-e-Azam led the active Muslim political struggle to give a practical shape to the dream of Allama Muhammad Iqbal, which he presented in the presidential address of 1930. Quaid-e-Azam was a firm advocate of the two-nation theory. His very famous quote when he said that Pakistan came into being when the first Hindu of the subcontinent embraced Islam. And he said that Muslims are a nation according to any definition of the nation, and they must have their separate homeland. And in the presidential address of the Lahore resolution, he clearly said that Hinduism and Islam are not merely two religions. We are not talking about two different religions, but two separate social orders. And it is a dream that the Hindus and the Muslims can evolve a common nationality. The Hindus and the Muslims belong to two different civilizations which are based mainly on conflicting ideas and conceptions. Now, some of his words about separate Muslim identity. He wrote a letter to Gandhiji. And he cleared his stance like, these are his words: we are a nation of our own distinctive culture and civilization, language and literature, art and architecture, sense of values, laws and moral codes, customs and calendar, history and tradition, aptitudes and ambitions. In short, we have our own distinctive outlook on life. By all canons of international law, we are a nation. And ideology of Pakistan, he said, we should have a state in which we could live and breathe as free men, and which we could develop according to our own culture, and where the golden principles of Islam, social justice, could find fair play. His address to the students at Islamic College, he said, we did not demanded Pakistan simply to have a piece of land, but we wanted to have a laboratory so where we could experiment on Islamic principles. So we can say that these speeches and statements of both the leaders reflect to understand the ideology of Pakistan. Both have proven that the Hindus and Muslims are two different nations due to their mutual differences between them. So they could not live together in a single state. The topic which we are going to cover today, it is evolution of ideology of Pakistan. The Muslim rule was established by Muhammad bin Qasim in the early 8th century, and it ended when the last emperor of the Mughal dynasty, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was dethroned. Now let's see what were the events which resulted in ideology of Pakistan. So the first I'm going to discuss here, it is East India Company 1857. The Britishers, they came to subcontinent as merchants, and the British merchants gradually became the masters of this land. Because unfortunately, the last rulers of the Mughal dynasty, they were very weak, and it was easy for them to take the advantage of this weakness. Second is Urdu-Hindi controversy. When after this 1857 incident, in 1867, some of the prominent Hindu leaders in Banaras, they demanded that Urdu should be replaced with Hindi, and Hindi should be the official language. And the reason was that Urdu was developed and flourished in the era of the Mughal dynasty. It is called the language of the Muslims. The next is two-nation theory. As we discussed it in our last lesson, that two-nation theory was, the pioneer of the two-nation theory is Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Okay, this Urdu-Hindi controversy, after this Urdu-Hindi controversy, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan changed his mind. He was in the favor of Muslims and Hindu unity. But when after this event, this Urdu-Hindi controversy, he realized that a nation which is not even ready to tolerate the language of the Muslims, how can it be possible that the Hindus and Muslims can have same identity or they can live together? So the two-nation theory is that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan said that Hindus and Muslims, they are totally different from each other. Indian National Congress 1885 was a political party, the first political party in a subcontinent, and it was the head of this party was A.O. Hume in 1885, and All India Congress, Indian National Congress, it claimed that they are going to safeguard the rights of the Hindus, which were in the majority, as well as the Muslims and all other the minorities which were living at that time in subcontinent. But later on, they proved this thing, that they were not in the interest of the Muslims. The partition of Bengal. The partition of Bengal bring a clarity in the vision of the Muslims, and they realize this thing, that Indian National Congress is not working for the interest or the political interest of the Muslims. Bengal was, according to the British government, Bengal was, which was one province, and it was divided in two parts, in two provinces for the administrative purposes. One was East Bengal and the other was the West Bengal. Muslims were supposed to have some benefits because of this partition, and it was not acceptable for the Hindus. And Indian National Congress was also not in favor of this partition of Bengal. So then, after the partition of Bengal and the reaction of the Hindus, some of the prominent leaders of Muslims, they thought that they should meet the viceroy. So October 1906, in October 1906, some of around about 36 leaders of the Muslims in the and Sir Aga Khan, he led them, and they went to Shimla to discuss these things with the Viceroy Lord Minto, and that is why it is called Shimla Deputation. They demanded for the separate electorate for the Muslims, and some other suggestions were also given to him. And Lord Minto, the reaction of Lord Minto was very encourageable for the Muslims, and in 1909, it resulted in 1909 that the Muslims were given the right of the separate electorate. So this successful Shimla Deputation gave them another idea, the idea of having a separate political platform for the Muslims. So the Muslim League was established in 1906, December 1906, for the political benefits of the Muslims. Remember one thing, that the Muslims of the subcontinent, they were like politically awakened in the beginning of the 20th century. Now let's move towards the establishment of the Muslim League. As I told you, that the Shimla Deputation 1906 was a very successful mission. So some of the prominent leaders, in the session of the All Indian Muhammadan Educational Conference, which was held under the chairmanship of Nawab Waqar al-Mulk in December 1906 at Dhaka, and he said in presidential address that it is very necessary for the Muslims right now that they should have their separate political platform, so they will be able to discuss their problems with the British government, and they can have the better solution for them. They will be able to give their suggestion in a better way, and they will be able to safeguard their political rights. So Nawab Salimullah Khan presented a resolution for the formation of a political party for the Muslims. So All India Muslim League was formed on 30th December 1906. Shimla Deputation, 1st October 1906, and Muslim League, 30th December 1906. They had some objectives in the beginning, but they changed their they bring an amendment in their objectives in 1913. And Quaid-e-Azam also joined Muslim League in 1930. At that time, he was working for Congress also. Now, let's move towards Nehru Report. Okay, this Nehru Report. The recommendations of the Nehru Report regarding the formation of the unanimous constitution for united India, this thing was totally against the interest of the Muslims, and which finished this possibility of having the unity of Hindus and the Muslims forever. And Muslims felt that the defense of their interest in united India was impossible. So it was all, and then the most important thing, the Congress Ministries in 1937. In 1937, provincial elections were held in India, and Congress succeeded in Hindu majority areas, the provinces. As a result, they established their governments in the different provinces. But this whole time period of the Congress ministries, it was the most difficult time for the Muslims because of most of their policies were against the Muslims. And now, Lahore Resolution. Lahore Resolution 1940. Lahore Resolution, as you know it as Pakistan Resolution, it was adopted in the annual session of Muslim League in 1940, which demanded the separate Islamic state, the establishment of the separate Islamic state in India. Now, I'll discuss this Pakistan Resolution in a bit detail. Pakistan Resolution, as I told you, in 1930, for the very first time, Allama Iqbal was the person who gave the idea of a separate nation, a separate state for the Muslim on territorial basis. And this Lahore Resolution, it was the Lahore Resolution was held on 23rd of March 1940, and we know it, or which came into know as the Lahore Resolution, Pakistan Resolution. Okay, so now different proposals were given there. Quaid-e-Azam, in his presidential address on this historic event, on the very first day of the session, Quaid-e-Azam addressed the gathering in the Minto Park, Lahore, and said that the problems of the subcontinent is not of a sectarian nature, but of an international nature. As long as this fact is not accepted, it is impossible to make an acceptable constitutional framework. Quaid-e-Azam declared, it has been taken for granted mistakenly that the Muslims are a minority. The Muslims are not a minority. The Muslims are a nation by any definition. Hence, they had the right to have a separate state region. On 23rd March 1940, the famous resolution, which came into known as the Pakistan Resolution, was moved and passed unanimously. The resolution was moved by the Bengal Chief Minister Maulvi Fazl-e-Haq, known as Sher-e-Bengal, and seconded by Chaudhry Khaliquzzaman and others. The reaction of the Muslims to this resolution, they responded with amazement, and they were having the hope for a better future then. And the resolution infused high spirits among the Muslims. The Hindus' reaction, and the Britishers also, they were very hostile towards this resolution. They condemned it and referred it to the partition as as you are dividing the mother India. And then so the reaction of the Gandhi called it a moral wrong and a sin to which he would never be a part. And the Hindu press also objected Lahore resolution. Okay then, so all these events after 7 years of Lahore resolution, as you know, that Quaid-e-Azam, with the help of his followers, with their hard work, Pakistan came into being on 14 August 1947, after a short time period after 1940, within 7 years, with the mercy of Allah Ta'ala, it was possible for them that they had a separate nation, a separate state for the Muslims. So these are the events, this is the evolution of the ideology of Pakistan. Okay students, now this is the end of our chapter 1. I hope you have understood it. If you have any problem, any query, you can ask me, and I hope you are going to solve your exercise properly. Thank you very much.